It was interesting to hear the evaluation of whether to put Murdaugh on the stand, why they did it, and how there was basically unanimity on it. Susan, what was your takeaway from the juror? I actually don't agree with the juror about the crying, but does it matter? And what does it tell you that some of the jurors went to the sentencing today?
Yeah, well, one of the first things I want to say, Chris, and thanks for having me on, it really doesn't matter what we think. What matters is what they thought and how they processed whether he was authentic or whether he was not, and he didn't find it. Personally, myself, I did see him crying, and I did see there were moments where he felt very, very passionate. So, and to answer your question when it comes to, the jury, I said the jury, when they listened to this, juror and why he showed up and why some of the other ones showed up was because they really wanted closure. Keep in mind that they have already invested several weeks into this trial. They also wanted to let people know that they knew who was behind it, but also they're physically there. They're open for questions, and they want to talk about it. So they're open there to answer questions like we've already seen. So I think that this is really for them as a part of closure. They wanted to be able to hear from the defendant. They were probably anticipating what the judge was going to say. They were also maybe wanting to hear what maybe Buster or some of his other families did, because for them, this has been such a part of their life, and it's going to be something that'll be part of their life between now and the rest of their life. This will be a very monumental moment of their entire life.
I do. I think this one's going to be good for Susan. It's Nancy from West Virginia.
Nancy, how you doing? What's your question?
Good. I have a question. I listened to a juror today on the evening news, and he said when they came back, two of those jurors said not guilty when they were talking. Now, how did they get that two jurors to change their mind in 3 hours?
Susan? Or 45 minutes?
Yeah, it's what. Well, first of all, they didn't do anything to help them change their mind. They changed their mind on their own. This is not coercion. That's when they get into the delivery room. But here's what we have, and I think the other attorneys will agree with me, is that when you took the first vote, and I talked about this last night, Chris, if you remember, that when they went in, they chose the juror foreperson, they probably took the first vote, and majority of them raised their hand. So we had 10 of them, I think it was 10 of them that said that they found them found them guilty. So that's what we call the majority effect. We've got a couple of other what we call sway jurors, or those that are indecisive. And I think that during the time of the 45 minutes of deliberation, they were able to walk that person through on a relationship level, to not chastise them, to not coerce them, but to explain to them what they saw. And I think that they were probably very convincing, and that's all it took. I don't think that those jurors were, down at a 2 level, and it took 7 levels to get to an 8 or 9 or 10. I think that they were like an 8, and they just needed just a little hump to get over to be able to make that decision. And they wanted to make sure that decision was one they could live with themselves. So it didn't take very long, 45 minutes, and it was a guilty verdict, as we all know.
Right. And
well,
look,
I've already bet you dinner once. I'll bet you dinner that the appeal sticks.
I'm not going to dinner.
We're all going to get fat off these bets. I've obviously been eating all these dinners myself.
Let me tell you something.
Yes, last word to you,
there
Gary.
are appellate...
I'll go to dinner.
Okay, I was just saying.
You and me, Susan.
I'll take you to dinner.
We'll go to dinner.
Here's what I know.
Yeah,
I am
sure.
so grateful to the group on the screen right now. Susan, you were a latecomer here, but you were value added immediately. Thank you. Sarah, you've been helping me for way too long. If I give how long, you'll get mad at me. But thank you so much. Eric Bland, you gave us texture and understanding from jump on this that has been invaluable. And Garrigus rhymes with asparagus. Nobody understands the nuance of how these things can go. That's how he told me to say his name the first time, Susan, like 20 years ago. I was like, how do I say your last name? He said,
I love it.
Garrigus. Sounds like asparagus. Mark Garrigus, thank you so much for everything, all of you. You were a gift to the audience in helping us understand this. Thank you, each and all.